Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, welcome to this today's council meeting, and I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. Councillor McDonald.
The lands we know today as the Township of Centre Wellington have been home to Indigenous peoples since time immemorial. We acknowledge that we are on the treaty lands and traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee. With increasing encroachment by non-Indigenous settlers in the Township of Centre Wellington, the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee could not continue their traditional lifestyle and settled in their villages along the Credit River and in the Grand River Valley. These Indigenous nations uphold their treaty rights within our jurisdiction. Today, the Township of Centre Wellington remains home to Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We are grateful to have the opportunity to share and respect Mother Earth and are committed to building constructive and cooperative relationships with Indigenous nations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Move down to addendums and corrections to the agenda, and we actually have a couple today. And I'll read the first, that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington, notwithstanding Section 4.17B of Procedure Bylaw 2024-65, requiring a virtual closed session meeting to be held in the council chamber, directs the closed session meeting on February 24th, 2025 to be held virtually in Veterans Hall B. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor McDonald, seconder on that. Councillor Evoy, any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay. And the second addendum and/or correction is that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington defer agenda item 12.8, amendment to the fees and charges for planning development to afford staff the opportunity for further review. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor McDonald, seconder on that. Councillor Wilton, any further comments or questions as it pertains to that? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Okay, we'll move down. Thank you for that. We'll move down to closed session. We're going to be moving down into, disclosure of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Is any conflicts? Okay, seeing none. Okay, then we'll move down to closed session. We're going to go into closed session that the Council of the Township of Centre Wellington convene in closed session in accordance with Section 2392C and F of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended to consider a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality and advice that is subject to solicitor client privilege, including communication necessary for that purpose. Do you have a mover for that? Councillor Evoy, do you have a seconder on that? Councillor Jefferson, all those in favor? So moved. So we'll go into closed session and then we'll come back up here around 6 o'clock for our public meeting. Hello, welcome. I'd like to call this public meeting to order. Declaration of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Seeing none, the purpose of this meeting is to present and receive public input regarding a proposed zoning bylaw amendment on the subject land known as 71206 line in the former township of West Garifraxa. The purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to change the zoning from A agricultural to A agricultural exception on the retained parcel to restrict residential uses. The amendment also seeks to permit the maximum floor area of all accessory buildings to be 6.2% of the total lot area of the severed parcel. The effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to implement zoning regulations necessary to facilitate a farm dwelling surplus severance and allow an increased maximum floor area on the severed parcel. The zoning amendment is a condition of the approval of the County of Wellington Land Division Committee application B54-24. If any person or public body would otherwise have ability to appeal the decision of the Township of Centre Wellington on the Ontario Land Tribunal OLT, but the person's or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Centre Wellington before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Centre Wellington before the bylaw is passed, the persons or public body may not be added to the party to the hearing of the appeal before the OLT unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there is a reasonable grounds to do so. If you wish to be notified the adoption of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the clerk, Township of Centre Wellington, 1 McDonald Square, Laura, Ontario, NOB 1SO. So how was the notice given?
Through you, notice was mailed to prescribed persons, agencies, and public bodies on or before January the 23rd, 2025. A copy was also placed in the Wellington Advertiser on the same date. I can therefore confirm the requirement for giving notice was completed on January 23rd, 2025.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to call Deanne Maiden, Senior Development Planner, to introduce the application. Welcome, Deanna.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Waters and members of council. Through you, the first public meeting this evening relates to the severance of an existing residence, accessory structures, and lands surplus to a farm operation at 7126 Line Bellwood, and is a condition of approval of Land Division application B54-24. In order to meet the requirements of the PPS and the county's official plan, it's necessary to prohibit residential uses on the retained farm parcel through a zoning bylaw amendment. The application is also seeking an exception to permit the maximum floor area of all accessory structures to be 6.2%, where 5% is permitted. The agent is also here to make a presentation on behalf of the owner, and I'll be available to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call on Jeff Boozman from Van Harten Survey to make a presentation on the application. And hello, Jeff. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Could not make it in tonight and apologize for that. So I'm online tonight. Again, yeah, this, as Deanna has just mentioned, this is a surplus farm resident severance. It was approved a couple months ago at the County of Wellington. At that time, the township wrote in a list of conditions, and one, of course, which would be the zone change, a variety of payments and so forth. They also asked that the silos be removed, and that is will be done. The application is to have no house on the farm itself, and it's also the desire of the applicant of the property owner to keep the farm buildings as an agricultural use and keep them as they are because of their aestheticness and how they look. In the desire to keep them, the floor area of them together is 6.2%, as mentioned, and that is what is being requested. We did try to keep the severance as small as possible, which is a desired outcome. And so if we had, I guess, squared off that parcel more, that maybe we might have made the 5%. But in this case, we've got 6.2%. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I think it's a pretty straightforward application. We've been at the council before with this type of application. Thank you.
No one registered to speak to this. Is there anyone present in the audience who would like to speak to this application? Okay, seeing none. If there are any opportunities for council to ask the applicant any questions pertaining to this item? Okay, seeing none. Okay, so at this point, if there's, it looks like everyone's done their job today, Jeff. It doesn't look like there's any questions here, so I'm going to adjourn this meeting. So at this point, do I have a mover for the adjournment? Councillor Wilton, seconder on that. Councillor McDonald, any further comments or questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? So moved. So there you go. You enjoy the rest of your evening, Jeff. Okay.
I'm up next. I'll be waiting online. Thank you.
Okay.
For number 2.
You're gonna bring on your twin brother.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move into our second meeting. Okay, so we're calling the order. Any declaration of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act as it relates to this one? Okay, seeing none. Purpose of this meeting is to present and receive public input regarding a proposed zoning bylaw amendment on the subject land known as 8141 Side Road 20 in the former township of West Garry. The purpose of this proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to change the zoning from A, agriculture, to EP, environmental protection, to A, agriculture exemption, and EP, environmental protection on the retained parcel to restrict residential uses. The effects of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to implement zoning regulations necessarily to facilitate a farm dwelling surplus severance. The zoning amendment is a condition of the approval of the County of Wellington Land Division Committee application B81-24. If any persons or public body would otherwise have the ability to appeal the decision of the Township of Centre Wellington to the Ontario Land Tribunal, OLT, but the person or public body does not make oral submission at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Centre Wellington before the bylaw is passed, the persons or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make oral submission at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Centre Wellington before the bylaw is passed, the persons or public body may be added as a party to the hearing of the appeal before the OLT unless the opinion of the tribunal there are no reasonable grounds to do so. If you wish to be notified of the adoption of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the clerk, Township of Centre Wellington, 1 McDonald Square, Laura, Ontario, NOB 1SO. Okay, how was notice given?
Through you, Mayor Waters, notice was mailed to prescribed persons, agencies, and public bodies on or before January the 23rd, 2025. A copy was also placed in the Wellington Advertiser on the same date. I can therefore confirm the requirement for giving notice was completed on January 23rd, 2025.
Thank you for that. And at this point in time, I'd like to call up our planner, Deanna, again.
Thank you. And through you, the second public meeting for this evening also relates to the severance of an existing residence and land surplus to a farm operation at 8141 Side Road 20 in West Garry, and is a condition of approval of land division application B81-24. In order to meet the requirements of the PPS and the county's official plan, it's necessary to prohibit residential uses on the retained farm parcel through a zoning bylaw amendment. Both parcels will otherwise comply with the applicable zoning provisions. And again, the agent is here to make a presentation on behalf of the owner.
Thanks again, Deanna. At this point in time, I'd like to call Jeff Boozman from Van Harten Survey to speak to this application.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Again, similar application of surplus farm resident severance and the zone changes to have no dwelling on the retained parcel. This one's very straightforward in that there's no significant accessory buildings on the severed lot. It's pretty straightforward, and I'm here for any questions or any comments that the council may have.
Thank you, Jeff. Any delegations on this one?
None registered.
Is there anyone present who'd like to speak to this application in the audience? Okay, seeing none. Would there be any, there's opportunity right here for council to ask any questions of this. Okay. Seeing that there's no questions, I'd like to thank everyone for attending and advises that the council will be considering the bylaws at a future council meeting. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor McDonald, seconder on that. Councillor Wilton, all those in favor? So moved. Okay, and we will, I'm going to officially close this meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff, for attending, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So we'll move down to presentation and announcements. 9.1, Mayor's County Council report. Tonight, I don't have anything to report that way, and then I'll look to council for any updates on their committees. Okay. Yes, Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Through you, the Elora BIA met last week on February 18th, and this is the first meeting since December that they've had. So Carrie O'Kane from the township attended to help the board get set up, as there were a few resignations from the board. A new chair, vice chair were all nominated and elected by the executive, and a new treasurer was elected at the December meeting. So there is now a new board set. They've set up their mandate for the 2025 year, and they're concentrating on beautification, marketing and events, and good governance. They've set up different committees based around these from their mandate, and they've updated their website, elora.info, with information, and they're looking for volunteers to sit on the committees with the executive as well, looking from the catchment area of the BIA and from the community. So if anybody's interested, they can go to their website to sign up. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Jefferson. Were there any questions or comments for Councillor Jefferson? Okay, now we'll move over to Councillor Wilton for a report.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. And just a very short update that the Fergus BIA met again, and they seem to be well under control and well organized and ready to bring on a really good season for 2025 with beautification and events and everything like that. So keep track of Fergus downtown. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions from everyone? Okay, we'll move along. Councillor Evoy.
That this weekend is the pancake breakfast with Farm Safety. To get more information, you can check out the Farm Safety site, or you can email me directly, and I'm happy to send you more details.
Okay, any other? Yes, you can. Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. I guess we'll do Economic Prosperity Committee, met last week as well. George gave an update for economic development with the business park, that he's working on agreements and a letter of intent. And he has increased the marketing of the business park and the available properties there. He's also coming soon to Economic Prosperity with an annual report and his plan for 2025. Short-term rentals bylaw came to our committee and had a lot of discussion. There was a lot of concern regarding the June application or need to apply by date, and if they can fit it all in with the inspections to fulfill their compliance by the November date. There was a change for the owners to live for 30 minutes, which seemed good. The committee liked that. There was some concern over septic inspections. The demerit point system and the fines was good. Everybody had positive comments about that. There's clarification around wording was needed. And also there was some questions about the agricultural and rural zoning of STRs. And if it's it's not written in there, so they're wondering if it should be included as well. And then clarification around the cost of the license and if it's for 3 years. So the committee felt that it was very important to get this right, as it affects a fair number of properties in our township. So there was a motion made by committee to readjust the bylaw, like they sent it back to staff for readjustment and some rewording, and that they want it brought back to the committee again before it comes to council.
Thank you, Councillor Jefferson. Any other further comments? I would be remiss if I didn't mention that. Again, I want to thank Carrie and her staff in terms of working with the Elora BIA and helping them out navigate things there. And the other one was also, I'd like to thank staff in terms of snow removal as well. As we know, it's been very wintry this year, but we've seen their efforts, their great efforts out there in terms of making sure that the community can get around and the streets and the sidewalks are accessible. I know other communities are struggling with that, but I give high kudos to our staff who have worked a lot of hours overtime to facilitate and make sure our community is being able to move around. So, and I know staff and council, senior staff and council feel that way as well. So thank you. Okay, so we'll move down to 10. We don't have any delegations? Nope. Consent items. Consent agenda items are considered routine in nature and are voted on collectively. However, any member of council may request one or more items be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion and or action. So I'll just read the recommendation that the Council Township of Centre Wellington approve consent agenda items 11.1 through to 11.3. And I'll just ask for a mover on that. Councillor Evil, our seconder on that. Councillor McDonald, any comments or questions as it relates to those consent agenda items? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Oh, sorry, I didn't see, sorry, I apologize. Yeah.
Sorry, my app thing isn't working, so I got distracted. I just wanted a very quick comment because I know Kyle's here in the audience, but I think the work on the Source Water Protection Committee and all of that work is really fantastic. So I appreciate all the efforts forward on all kind of the elements within that program. So thank you, Kyle.
Thank you, Councillor Wilton. Okay. Okay, I'll just finish this off and then, okay, so we had a mover and a seconder, all in favor as it relates to the consent? So moved, okay. And, oh, and yes, it's just been reminded from our clerk that coming out of the closed session, there was nothing to come out of closed at this time. So, okay, consideration of our reports. Item 12.1, Home Energy Efficiency Transitional Program report from Dan Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. This is a program that has been proposed by Wellington County, the Home Energy Efficiency Transition Program. What we're looking for at this point is general support from council to proceed with reports regarding the implementation and any necessary bylaws, and to allow for the mayor to provide a letter of support to FCM, which is to support a Wellington County initiated grant for this program. And we have Karen Chisholm here, the Climate Change and Sustainability Manager for Wellington County, who will do a presentation on the program itself and help answer any questions.
Hi, Karen. Nice to see you.
Hi. It's great to be here. I think this is the only council I haven't come to yet since I started at Wellington County. So I'm very happy to be here today with you. So the Home Energy Efficiency Transition, that is a working title. It will likely, when it launched, be called something else. But this is our working title. We lovingly refer to it as the HEAT program. This program, we've been working on this for a number of years. The objective of the program is to incentivize and support homeowners who want to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and improve energy efficiency in their homes. So we've completed a feasibility study, and we've just recently completed the program design back in November 2024, and now we're moving forward with the capital fund as Mr. Wilson indicated. Okay, so the program purpose, to accelerate the adoption of low emissions and energy conservation home retrofits. So really we're talking about improving building envelopes and increasing the uptake of heat pumps, but there are a lot of other measures that would be covered under the program. These are just some of the, I guess, not silver bullet, but some of the big items that would help reduce greenhouse gas emissions and improve energy conservation. And second is we want to help address energy poverty. Energy poverty is estimated to be about 25% in Wellington County. And that picture on the right is my heat pump. I got it installed last winter. It's doing marvelously. We had a real good test this winter with it, and we haven't had to use backup heat or anything like that. So just a plug for heat pumps. It's been really great. So heat is a multi-solve solution. When we were looking at designing this program, we had to kind of do a 360-degree view of how this program would help achieve other things that the County of Wellington is looking to achieve. So for instance, under social housing and social services, there's potential for this program to help reduce applicants of LEAP, which is our energy affordability support program. Complement Ontario Renovates program, another program partially funded and administered by the county to help those who are in need of an emergency furnace or other repairs, and reduce the number of homes deciding between food and energy expenses. Under economic development, we've seen these programs at different levels of government come and go to support the retrofit industry. Energy advisors, particularly, they ramp up and then have to fall back again. So we're hoping this program is going to help stabilize that a little bit for our community industries, and improve the quality and desirability and resiliency of the building stock. Under planning, there's potential that this can help contribute to affordable additional units. So someone is looking to put in an affordable additional unit. Some of that financing can help support some of that work. And it delays the need for expensive energy and gas network expansion. So looking at it at a high level, if we improve energy conservation, there's more energy to go around. We also, of course, have the Wellington Terrace. And so this program can help folks afford their energy bills, stay in their homes longer. If there's retrofits they need to do in their home, we may be able to help support some energy efficiency work at the same time. And of course, emergency management and emergency services, improving the building stock's resiliency to extreme events, as well as improving living conditions during extreme events like heat waves and power loss. We're also looking at this from a change management perspective. So we wanted to look at what are the things the county is doing to help homeowners learn and about energy efficiency and give them the tools they need to actually implement those activities. So you'll see under knowledge, so having people understand what it takes to do the energy efficiency. We have a concierge service, which would be part of the HEAP program, and the ability, which would be loans and grants through the HEAP program to actually get the work done. And then reinforcement. Another program feature is a pathway to net zero plan. I'll get into these a little bit more. And so that would help homeowners set them on a pathway to do energy efficiency work over the long term. They don't have to do it all at once. So the HEAP program itself, financing incentive, really the big piece of this program is the county providing through FCM grants and county funding is a financing program. It is a local improvement charge program, so homeowners can get a loan through the county, and it would be tied to the property and not the person. And there's also ability to have incentives, and that's where we can start chipping away at energy poverty. The second piece is a concierge service. So this is like an energy coach type service where homeowners can call and get advice, free advice, impartial advice on what to do, and help them work through the the phases of application and whatnot, help them understand the quotes that they're getting from contractors. Third is a centralized web platform. So this is where all the activity would take place. This is where the county, the municipalities, and the administrators of the concierge service and the homeowners would meet and get information, trade information, that sort of thing. The Climate Ready Pathway Plan, as I mentioned, on the change management pathway, this is a plan that the concierge service would provide, and it would identify the activities that a homeowner can do to get their house to net zero or net zero ready. And they can also kind of pick and choose the things that they can do and what they're interested in. But there's a nice pathway there that they can follow, and it allows us to meet them where they are in their renovation and net zero journey. And the last is promotion of low carbon resilience. So this program has been focused on energy efficiency, but there's opportunity to also build in some resiliency and some resilience features and have that covered by the loan as well. So there's a number of items that we've listed in the program that would be covered. So this would be things like, if you're going to put insulation in your attic, then if you're up there, why not put in the hurricane straps at the same time? Things like that. So the loan terms, like I said, it's an LIC financing tool. The financing is attached to the property and not the homeowner, and it's repaid via the property tax, which is where Center Wellington would come in. There are supportive features with flexible underwriting. Up to 50% of the amount upfront is available, and available incentives. And the financing amount, we're looking at a minimum of $10,000, and that is to encourage multiple activities done at one time. We don't want people necessarily to just go in and put in windows. We want them to look at windows and insulation, or windows and a heat pump. And to a maximum of $80,000, or 10% of the property value, whichever is less. And that again allows for people to do really deep energy retrofits. And the attractive repayment, it's a possibility of greater than a 10-year term for repayment, and that is really reflective of some of the activities that are eligible, and the lifespan of those activities. So we want to give people a longer time, a lower monthly payback for those activities that have a longer lifespan, and penalty-free early repayment. So like I mentioned, we've been doing this over several phases, over several years, and throughout we've had consultation with municipal finance staff to make sure that what we're proposing is not crazy and that it's actually doable. So through the feasibility study, we met with finance staff as well as our solicitor at the county, just to get some preliminary thoughts on what this could look like, what it means for staff as far as capacity, and what are some of the mechanisms and processes. So it was kind of a high level, is this possible kind of conversation at the feasibility study. And the program design, we got into more detail. So we're fortunate to have Mr. McNabb and Ms. Cheney from Guelph Hermosa Township meet with us to really get into some of the details of LICs and the municipalities' experience with LICs and some of the processes. And then we met with all of the member municipality finance staff to get into those details across the board to make sure that we understand every municipality's individual experience with LICs and processes associated with those. So this is a multi-stakeholder activity. We, of course, have the county, we have the member municipalities, we have the homeowner, and then we have that administrator. So the pathway, first we have this discovery phase, and that is really the marketing piece where we educate homeowners on the program. That is the application. So interested homeowners would apply. They can apply through that concierge service. Then they get into the improvements, so collecting, going out and getting quotes for the work that they want to do. On the administrative side, it's a property owner agreement that gets signed to lay out the terms of the loan. And then they start doing some of those upgrades. The financing piece, of course, looking at the project completion, getting those invoices in, and recording the LIC, and of course, starting that repayment. And then we've also included an ability to re-enter the program. So if someone has done one measure, they enjoyed that experience and want to work further down their pathway plan, or they've decided they wanted to do some extra resiliency measures, then they can re-enter the program and complete phases 1 to 4 again. So for the member municipalities, I think this is probably where you're most interested, is the roles and responsibilities. So we would be asking the member municipalities to verify participant property tax bill history. And this is really an indicator of their ability to pay back a loan. Approve and sign the property owner agreement forms. Record the LIC on the benefiting properties. Pass required bylaws through council resolution, overseeing billing and collection process, prepare the budget and status updates for the county. We want to make sure that the county and the municipal information is correct, so we'll be working closely on that. Manage the delinquencies and defaults if needed, and apply to a loan loss reserve to recover partial losses when needed. So I wanted to give you a snapshot of what the budget is for this program over 4 years. You'll see that the county has contributed $2.7 million over 4 years to the program, and then you'll see the grant amount from FCM as well, or the Green Municipal Fund through FCM, and the loan amount is up there as well. But I think what you're most interested on this slide is the uptake scenarios. So this is some modeling that was done through our consultant, and we're anticipating a Township of Centre Wellington to have at the high end 37 applications yearly. So what I have been told with FCM is this is the last year of funding. And so this is if we max out our funding. We're not certain that we will max out the funding from FCM because there's a lot of demand. But that gives you an idea of the numbers that you could possibly see. So the next steps, I'm working on the FCM application right now, and I'm hoping actually to get it in the next week or two. We'll be developing the RFP for third-party administrator and going through that process to secure those services. We'll be developing the LIC bylaw template for the municipalities to kind of help out with that load. We'll develop a process map with the municipalities, so we'll be working with your staff to make sure that the processes are suitable and helpful to both the county and the municipalities. We also have talked about compensation for the work that municipal staff will be doing for this program, so we'll need to hammer out what that compensation looks like and have a formal agreement with the county for that service that you'd be providing. And then we'll start the visioning for the marketing campaign. And that's it for me. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Karen, for that presentation. So, okay, Councillor Evoy.
To you, sir. Love it. Thank you so much. It's very exciting. Big. And I'm trying to wrap my head around some of these numbers and how our staff are going to manage those numbers. So that's a further discussion. But the two questions I have are actually opposite to one another. One, you said you're encouraging people to do more than one project at a time, but what if they don't? Will they be less likely to be accepted or more likely to be declined if they're only doing one project, because we need to respect that perhaps that's all they can manage financially?
Yes, so through Mayor. So the 10,000 lower limit on the loan. We want to encourage more than one activity to be taken at one time. However, we also want to make sure that the administrative side is worthwhile because of all of the moving parts on that administrative side. We want to make sure that the loan is sufficient and worthwhile to do that because there is quite a cost to that. So that's the other reason why we've put it at $10,000. So if they have a project, a heat pump can be upwards of $10,000 or more if that's all they choose to do. If it's 10,000 or more, then that's absolutely acceptable.
Thank you. While I respect that, I also concern myself with those that may not be in a financial position. While they still might be on that journey, as you speak of, to building that resilience, I really want to find a way to honor those that aren't as financially able. And the other half of that question is, what if people are more able? Is there some sort of a reward as opposed to getting a loan? Is there some sort of reward for going on this journey towards net zero?
So through the mayor, so first to address those who may not be able to take on loans, we do have some consumer protections that will be in place to ensure that those who are unable to pay back a loan will not be qualified to get a loan, so that they aren't burdened with that payback and don't get themselves into trouble. So we want to be very clear for who these loans are for and who they're not. That being said, we are looking for incentives for those that won't necessarily afford a loan. I can give you an example. The City of Guelph, right now, they have a $15,000 grant for those who would not qualify for a loan, but are currently on considered low income and are currently on electric baseboard heat to go to a heat pump because it is more efficient, and that would lower their energy bills. So that is the type of incentive we're looking for those who wouldn't qualify for a loan. We also have our Energy Coach program that's been running now for a year that helps promote some of the provincial programs for low income and get those folks engaged so that we can get some energy efficiency energy efficiency retrofits at no cost to them. We also have our energy kit through the library so people can discover their energy use and maybe change some habits to lower their energy use as well. So for an incentive for those who, as your second question, the incentive for those who want to go on that pathway, we don't have incentives through this program for that group. However, we are building this program around other programs that are available at the provincial and federal level. Provincial government earlier this year released their grant program, and so we will look at that and promote those as well. The federal government has talked about relaunching their Canada Greener Homes grant program as well, and we don't have the details on that. That is going to be focused more on low and middle income households. So we don't have the details, but when we know the details, we can help build around that.
Councillor MacDonald.
Through Mayor Waters, you just touched on the Greener Homes one that was done, I think, through Enbridge, but it was provincial through the Ministry of Natural Resources was how the funding went. It was a nightmare. It has been a nightmare, and I've had several neighbors complain about it. So is this doing similar things, or is this just for lower income families and you're leaving the Greener Fund for higher income families? Because your method is much more appetizing than going through how it has been done, because it was a nightmare.
So through the mayor, I went through the Canada Greener Homes grant program for my own work in my own house, and I have to say I'm still waiting for my check from the federal government. I didn't go through their loan program. I used the City of Guelph because that's where I live. They have a loan program, and so I used that program. So yeah, it's hard for me to say what the nightmare is and comment on that. What I can tell you about our program is that homeowners will be dealing with an administrator who is arm's length to the municipality and the county. And so we're very close. We're not, far away. So if there's a problem, we're sure to hear about it and rectify that. So the incentives themselves, we would be looking to incentivize those for lower income, like I said, and look to things like the provincial program and the federal program for higher income to help offset their work.
Thank you for that. Myself, I went through it, paid up front and checks in the mail sometime, I guess. Thank you.
I hear you.
Any other comments or questions for Karen? Well, thank you very much for your presentation tonight. Really appreciate you coming out, and it was nice to see you. And so I'll see you at the next planning meeting. Okay. I'm going to read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Central Wellington supports the implementation of the Home Energy Efficiency Transition Program within the Township of Central Wellington, and that the Council of Township of Central Wellington directs staff to prepare the necessary local improvement charge by law for the implementation of the Home Energy Efficiency Transition Program to be presented to Council for consideration at a future meeting, and that the Mayor be authorized to provide a letter of support to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, FCM, on behalf of the Council in support of the County of Wellington application for grant funding to assist with the implementation of the Home Energy Efficiency Transition Program. Do you have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, seconder on that. Councillor McDonald. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's so moved. Okay, so now we're going to move down to 12.2, Ontario Heritage Act Alternative Notice Policy, and Mariana is here to speak to that. Welcome, Mariana.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Waters, members of council. So the report before you is requesting an alternative notice policy for the Ontario Heritage Act notices that go out regarding designations of heritage properties. You might recall that Bill 23, the More Homes Built Faster Act, made some changes to the Ontario Heritage Act in terms of the register, how long a property could be on the register, and gave a deadline of initially it was January of this year, which they extended to January of 2027. But that time was given to allow municipalities some time to designate properties in advance of them being required to be removed from the register. So most municipalities are actively working on as many designations as possible, which is great. It's the highest form of protection of heritage properties, but also comes with it some notice requirements, and those can be costly. So we are given the ability under the Ontario Heritage Act to pass an alternative notice policy through a council decision that allows us to publish on a website instead of publishing in a local newspaper. And so what we are requesting is that council adopt this alternative notice policy. And I can say that we have in the last 6 months designated 8. Council has designated 8 properties, which is great. We're going in the right direction. And we anticipate several more coming over the next 2 years until that deadline is in effect. And then each one, just to give you some ballpark numbers, each one costs us approximately $1,000. So the notice itself in the paper, and there's two parts. There's the notice of intention, which has a very long prescriptive set of requirements in terms of what needs to be included in that. And then there's the notice of passing when the bylaw gets passed in stage 2. So it costs approximately $1,000 or more for each one. And we've done 8 so far. We anticipate many more. On average, we'd probably be doing approximately 1 per month over the next couple of years. So the reasons for proceeding with the policy would be the cost savings. obviously, and then time and efficiency as well in publishing the notices right after they are required to be sent. And then also some changes in trends with notices and engagement with the public. Less reliance on printed newspapers and a little more reliance on online information seeking. So we think this is a good time. Many other municipalities are going this route and have either passed policies such as this or are passing them, including, I think, most recently in Puss Lynch. So we are requesting that council consider that. And just a last note is that this will not impact the notice that is required to go directly to the owner and the Ontario Heritage Trust. With regard to these notices, that will not impact an owner's ability to appeal. So for those reasons, that's what staff is proposing.
Thank you, Mariana. Question, Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters, thank you. My only concern is not having the newspaper for accessibility. There's seniors, I mean, they still do telephone voting. So, you know, they do not go on the website. And in my area, I have a lot of seniors and retirees that still prefer the paper. So that's my only concern about it. That is where they get their information. That's all.
Councillor Evoy.
Yes, sir. I think I'm celebrating that we are encouraging more heritage homes. So for clarification, who does that notice go to? If it's just to the homeowner, and like when you communicate with them anyway, and if we can save ourselves that money, wouldn't we?
Well, through you, the notice is required to go to the owner, but then it's also required to be published in a paper. So really, it's the owner whose rights are impacted because it's their property. So they would be most concerned to receive the notice, and that will remain the way it is. But it's for the public to know and be aware that these designations are occurring. May not impact them directly, but it's still good for, I think, the public to know that these designations are happening and they are reading about them in the local paper. But we would be anticipating putting an ad in the paper prior to an enactment of this type of a policy so that the public is aware that going forward, these designations, the notices will be on the township's website and they can subscribe to the website for any new notice that comes out.
Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Yeah, I understand with the current volume and stuff, I understand and agree with the proposed report. And I was happy to see there was that acknowledgement from staff about the future use of ads in our community paper. We are in an age where we're trying to increase our public participation and awareness and everything we do. And I think our community specifically, we have, a high readership in our local newspaper, which I think we're all really proud of. But I do agree with this report here, this particular use, but I'm happy to see and hear about the acknowledgement of the continuing use of the notices in other ways.
Councillor Evoy.
Through you, totally agree. And I want to also add how much we appreciate our newspapers. Is there a way, it's certainly not telling you what to do, is there a way that maybe you can do 5 at a time or 3 or 4 at a time so that we're not doing it monthly, but we're recognizing for, all the people at this table with varying thoughts and comments and still acknowledging our paper's value. Could we possibly do that?
Thank you. Through you, we try to consolidate them as much as possible. So for the notice of passing, for example, we've got 4 or 5 bylaws. We do them at once and we kind of list them. Those are shorter, but the notice of intent to designate, they're very extensive. It goes through all the reasons for designation, and then all the heritage attributes and then appeal rights. So they are quite lengthy. They're about a page long and there's no way to shorten or consolidate any of those, really. So whether you have 1 a month or 5 at once, it doesn't make much difference in terms of costing.
Okay, any other questions for Mariana? Thank you very much for your presentation. I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Central Wellington adopts the Ontario Heritage Act Alternative Notice Policy as outlined in Staff Report PLN 2025-12 dated February 24th, 2025 and enacts a corresponding bylaw. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, seconder on that. Councillor Jefferson. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Thank you. We'll move down to item 12.3, single axle plow truck replacement. And I see John moving up to the lectern there. Again, thank you for all your work and effort from all your folks as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thanks also for the acknowledgement. We do have an amazing team, both permanent full-time staff and our seasonal staff as well. So just very briefly, we have one single axle plow truck that's scheduled for replacement in 2025. The cost of heavy trucks has continued to rise at a rate greater than CPI. So based on our current pricing, we're about 3.7% over our approved budget amount. Using cooperative procurement through Canoe Procurement Group allows the township to purchase pre-ordered trucks, reducing the turnaround time from order to delivery. Delivery of this replacement truck prior to next winter season allows for us to get rid of an old truck, which would likely require significant maintenance costs to keep it operational for another winter season. So we're looking for approval for a top-up of $13,383 so that we can move ahead with this order.
Okay. Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters, I'm always supportive of any vehicles that we need because that's what keeps everyone happy. How come we didn't know this during budget time?
Through you, Mayor, we do our best to use our historical information from recent purchases. I believe we closed the tender on single axle trucks in 2022. And so we felt that we had a decent buffer on top of that unit pricing, and also discussing with Viking, who is the builder of the bodies for the trucks. And yeah, unfortunately, a lot of the time the adjustments to the model year on the trucks, the pricing isn't known until middle of the year. And then, yeah, so it's not, and there's also the cost of the body as well. So the US dollar conversion also makes a big difference. And as we know, the Canadian dollars continue to slide against the cost, against the US value. And so, and even since, yeah, some of the truck that we're looking to firm up an order on, it's continued to shift to, yeah, more expensive for us, right? So, sorry, not sure if that exactly answers your question. We do the best with the information that we have available, and inflation as it relates to these vehicles is fairly unpredictable.
Thank you, Mayor. Follow up. 2022 is quite a while ago, so that's why I was asking, because we have seen a lot of top ups on our fire trucks, on all the vehicles. So I guess could we maybe get this in before the tariffs come in? That would be great.
Okay. Any further questions or comments for John? Okay. Well, thank you, John. I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Central Wellington authorize award for the purchase of one new proposed purpose-built single axle plow truck to Viking Chevs at an upset limit of $373,383, inclusive of non-rebate HST, and that the Council of Township Central Wellington authorize an additional funding of $13,383 to be transferred from the General Capital Reserve. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor McDonald, seconder on that. Councillor Jefferson. All those in favor? So moved. Thank you. We'll move down to item 12.4, second line reconstruction, road base stabilization, BDT, product procurement. And Adam is going to speak to this. Thank you, Adam, and welcome.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Waters, members of council. So here to speak to you today, and we'll just get that adjusted. There we go. Thank you very much. About an ongoing collaboration we have with BDT, Biodiffusion Technologies, using novel technology. It's a plant-based bioresin to harden road base and trying to extend the life of our roads. And I just want to acknowledge I'm joined by Tyler Whale of BDT. And so this is an ongoing collaboration. We've been working with BDT kind of officially since 2023. I've provided a few updates to council in 2023, 2024 on this collaboration. And, this is a technology we're really excited about. We've been kind of scaling up the application of it, and we've also been monitoring and collecting data to assess the performance of it. So here for two reasons. Well, one is to seek council approval of kind of furthering this collaboration this year, and the other is to provide you with a bit of an update in terms of what we're seeing and the value we think we're getting for this with this technology. So the 2023 trial was a 300-meter trial section of the 8th line that we were reconstructing, and then we scaled that up last year in 2024 to include a 1.9-kilometer segment. And I'm going to speak to both of those segments. So what's the benefit of this technology? Well, it increases the structural capacity of our roadway with minimal use or really no use of new materials in the way of aggregate. So we can reuse what's there, try and strengthen it, pave it, and then see that pavement have a higher load-bearing capacity, which translates to a longer service life. It's sustainable, so it's a plant-based product, so there's no kind of in-ground carbon inputs into it. We have the ability now, we've been doing this for a few years, to kind of monitor how it's performing and try and look at what are the life cycle benefits of this technology. We have the potential to treat more roads with it because it's, cost effective and also can be applied relatively quickly. So that means we have the potential to apply it to more roads and see the benefits. And it's reducing our greenhouse gas footprint relative to a traditional road reconstruction, which would mean, perhaps loading up material, moving it off site, bringing in fresh material, placing it with equipment. So it is, from a greenhouse gas perspective, there's definitely a benefit. So what is it? As I mentioned, it's a plant-based bioresin. It's an emulsion, so it has this bioresin and water. When it gets applied, the water evaporates, leaving just the resin, and the resin is kind of this sticky product that, once it hardens, it's hydrophobic, so that means it repels water. It's non-toxic, it's been tested, and is a non-toxic product. The key is it has to be applied in warm months. It can't be applied when the temperature's freezing. So the first major trial that we did, the 300-meter segment on the 8th line in 2023. So this was a road that has had quite poor performance with the pavement in the past, very high truck traffic. There are gravel pits located on that segment of road, and the pavement was deteriorating at a rate faster than what would be expected. The road base, which is key to the construction of the road, was variable and insufficient in some locations. So it seemed to be a really great candidate to apply this technology and see how it performed. So the key question here is, and I'll get back to it later in the presentation, is just can this product extend the life of our roads and reducing the life cycle cost of the road? So BDT is partnered with some very smart pavement engineers and road engineers, much smarter than me, and so I'll do my best trying to explain the testing that they did. But they're using the state-of-the-art. These state-of-the-art deflectometers, they're called. So when you're measuring the strength of a road, the key is how much is that road deflecting under load. So if a load is passing over top of it, how much is that road kind of being depressed and bent? The less it deflects, the stronger the road is, and the longer the pavement will last. So that's the key here, is measuring deflection. Higher deflection means higher deflection is bad, lower deflection is good. So they use this state of the science tool. It's called a multi-speed deflectometer. It goes into a truck tire. They drive the truck down the road, and it's collecting data every second of how that pavement is deflecting under the load. So they went out to the 8th line and they did this deflectometer test, and then we could see like what sections of the road were deflecting the most, or what were the weakest segments of the road. And that's how we selected this 300-meter trial segment. We wanted to pick a segment that was deflecting a lot, so the road was not very strong. So how are we applying this? So we'll go out to a paved road. There's this initial pulverization step. So we're pulverizing the asphalt in place and mixing it back in with the granular materials. We're not moving any asphalt off site. It's being ground up and recycled in place. The bioresin is a liquid, and it's being sprayed from a truck on top of that pulverized material. Then it's being mixed again to ensure the bioresin is penetrating to the right depth, and it's being mixed kind of uniformly with the granular. It's then graded and compacted, and it's left to cure and harden. So you can see here the treated surface doesn't look very different, right, from a gravel road. But what happens is over time, that water evaporates. It just leaves the bioresin and starts to get harder and harder and harder. So how hard does it get, and what does that look like over time? So we did some additional testing. After application, we used something called a lightweight deflectometer, which is similar to a multi-speed deflectometer, but slower but more accurate. So collected a bunch of different measurements along the treated segment. And here are some busy graphs showing the deflection at different times. So a day after, 2 days after, 3 days after, a week after application. And what this showed us was, you can see the kind of the bar graph on the right here, is that over time the deflection was decreasing. So that means the road base was becoming stronger. And at 8 days after application, it was about 18% stronger than it was when we started. So that's a pretty substantial increase in strength. And then further testing of the 2023 segment last year in 2024 showed that after it's been paved and then the asphalt cures, it continues getting harder and harder and harder over time, and the deflection gets less and less and less over time. So we're actually seeing, we think, strengthening of the base that's occurring even, a year after testing. It's hard to back out exactly how much, because the asphalt oxidizes and becomes stronger also, but we are seeing a significant decrease in the deflection of the road. So then last year, 2024, we wanted to scale this up a little bit. There were some lessons learned, I think, in 23 in terms of the application methods, and BDT's been thinking of different ways to do it more efficiently. So we went back out last year, did a longer segment, 1.9 kilometers, and applied some new techniques, and it went very well. We were able to kind of get the whole segment of road treated in a couple days, which is really great news. And we've now started testing this 2024 segment, and we don't have a lot of data right now, but we're starting to come in. And I think we can safe to say we're seeing similar results in the 1.9 kilometer segment, where we're seeing, an increase in the base strength, which is transferring to an increase in the, or a reduction in the deflection of the pavement, which is a good thing. So in conclusion, this product improves the structural capacity of the granular base, 18% a week after test construction. Application of asphalt on top of that further reduces deflection. We are seeing an average of about 2.2 millimeters. To put it in perspective, anything above 2 millimeters is considered not a very good road. Below 2 millimeters is okay, and below 1 is a very good road. And so the deflection decreased from 2.2 millimeters to about 1.1 millimeters. And we're still seeing the deflection decreasing a year after testing. So for 2025, we have in our capital budget a project to reconstruct second line West Garifraxa between County Roads 18 and 19. It's about a 2.4 kilometer segment, relatively high traffic on this road segment. And we did a geotechnical study to look at the qualities of the road base, and found that the road base is deficient in quite a few locations with some topsoil mixed in. So that explains, why the road has been kind of, performing the way it has, and a lot of rutting and pavements disappearing. So this is really, we think, an ideal segment to go out and apply BDT bioresin to again this year. So that's what we're proposing to do, and that's what we're seeking council approval for. So our next steps, we're going to continue monitoring through this collaboration, the 2023 and 2024 trial segments. And I think, we want to see over the long term cycles of freezing and thawing, how is it impacted? So really, what can we expect long term? But the early results suggest that the product is working well, but we want to confirm that. And so we'll continue to do that testing, and then we are seeking endorsement of this trial site. I guess we've done the trials now, but we don't really call it trial segment anymore, but this further collaboration on the second line. Thanks very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Adam. Comments, questions from council? Councillor Evoy.
Through you, sir. Thank you. I remember being really excited the first time we talked about this, and I think I'm even more excited now to see how well things have gone. Can you just reiterate, I said a couple of parts to this question. Can you reiterate what deflection means for all of us who may have missed the simplified explanation of it?
Yes. Yeah, thanks, Councillor Evoy. So through the mayor, so deflection is just a measurement of when you pass a heavy load over top of the road, how much, picture like a mattress, right? When you sit down and that mattress deflects, right? It kind of goes down and then bends. And a road is the same thing. When you put a heavy load on it, it's not very much, it's hard to see, but that road is deflecting and it's bending. And that's, asphalt is very good at having weight directly on top of it, but it's not very good when you start bending it because it wants to kind of break apart. So that deflection creates that bending motion and causes stress that then causes the pavement to crack.
The final question, or the other part of the question is, if it's that hard, if it becomes that hard, it's becoming harder and harder over time, does that mean repairs will become that much more difficult for our teams? And the final part of that would it be more expensive to do and less expensive to repair? So if you could just speak to those together, please.
Yep. No, thanks, Councillor Evoy. So through the mayor again. So actually, it becoming harder is a good thing, and it becoming harder means that there will be we can expect less repairs, less potholing, less cracking. So it's actually the fact that it's getting harder was actually going to make it easier, and in the context of repairing it, because there will be less repairs that we'll have to do. Yeah, and cost-wise, that'll save us money because it's going to be less repairs, and it's also going to be the pavement's going to last longer, so it won't have to be replaced as often.
Is that where our win is financially?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a higher capital cost up front to pay for this material to apply it, but then it's extending the life of the road, and it's extending the life of the road enough that it's offsetting that upfront capital cost. So when we talk about life cycle costs, that's from paving to when that pavement is at end of life. What are you paying through the whole the life of that pavement? So that it's saving us money from a life cycle cost perspective.
Any other comments or questions from council for Adam? Well, thank you very much for your presentation. I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Central Wellington approves a single source contract for the supply and application of a road-based stabilization bioresin to Biodiffusion Technologies, Inc. at the upset limit of $200,520, including non-rebate HST, as outlined in report number IS 2025-08. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, seconder on that. Councillor Evoy. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those, sorry, go ahead.
Just one quick comment to thank you, Adam, for taking on this kind of innovative approach and for looking at alternative solutions to extending the life of our assets. So thank you very much for doing this.
Yes, all those in favor? So moved. Thank you very much. Okay, now we'll move down to active transportation fund grant application 12.5, and it looks like we still have Adam here. Okay.
Yeah, you get me again. So, yep, thank you, Mayor, members of council. So, switching gears here to talk about active transportation. So, we are interested in applying for grant funding from the Active Transportation Fund for a project that we think is going to be really important to enhancing our active transportation network here in the township. So, the Active Transportation Fund is a federal grant program supporting projects that increase use of active transportation by supporting connections to existing planned infrastructure. I think this is the most pertinent of the bullets for our project here. Increase affordability by providing cheaper travel options, support efforts to mitigate climate change, and improve active transportation options for all. The grant covers up to 60% of eligible costs, and they are due on the 26th, which is Wednesday. Yeah, this one had a quick turnaround. We found out about it in December. So, here's the project that we're proposing. So the Elora Cataract Trail passes through the township, and in Fergus, it follows currently, some of the streets in Fergus, some busier than others. Garifraxa Street being kind of the busiest that it follows currently. And, I think there's an interest in perhaps improving that trail network by rerouting it within Fergus to capitalize on some existing controlled crossings of intersections. And so what we're proposing here is a rerouting of the Elora Cataract Trail, and then some improvements at BD Line in the way of a new signalized intersection and some off-road multi-use paths to help kind of connect the Elora Cataract Trail to the Trestle Bridge Trail to the Wellington County campus lands. And then to the continuation of the Elora Cataract Trail. So if you can picture it, right now the Elora Cataract Trail kind of ends on Gazowski Street where there's that switchback. So we're proposing to bring folks across Forfar Street to Victoria Terrace, down Victoria Terrace, utilizing the existing signalized pedestrian crossing there to cross Garifraxa Street, and then from Garifraxa Street to Hill Street, across Hill Street to Gowrie, and then to St. George, and then St. George through the new pedestrian crossing on St. David Street, all the way to BD Line. We chose this route, again, capitalizing on kind of existing infrastructure, but also we want to follow a path that's relatively gentle topography and not big hills, because we know that big hills, are hard for people to walk and bike up. We want to make it easier. So some other things we're proposing to do with this grant application, this project, is improve wayfinding signage through Fergus with perhaps some signage kind of, downtown this way, for folks who are using the trail, just to kind of help connect them to some of the other features in Fergus. Benches, bike racks, and then there's a portion of St. George Street West that is currently gravel surfaced. We would want to hard surface that with the project. And then I mentioned this new signalized controlled pedestrian or controlled crossing at BD that would get people from the Trestle Bridge and Elora Cataract trailheads on the west side across to the east side and vice versa. So I spoke to some of the benefits here already, but, we want to reroute the trail through perhaps lower volume roads that are a bit safer. I should have mentioned in the previous slide that traffic calming is also part of this. So we want to install traffic calming along those streets and the trailway to encourage drivers to slow down. We're utilizing existing infrastructure in the way of those controlled crossings at Victoria Terrace, Garifraxa, and St. David, St. George. And, this is really like when you look at that kind of, it's a bit of an active transportation hub on BD at the Trestle Bridge and Elora Cataract trailhead. So it's really, kind of a great location to have some improvements. In the way of cost, we've prepared a high-level cost estimate for the project. So total cost, $650,000, and 60% of that would be covered by the grant. So that would be $390,000 that would be reimbursed for successful, and the township would be funding approximately $260,000. So our next steps, pending council endorsement, we'll proceed with submitting the grant application. If successful, we will report back to council through the 2026 budget process to, provide some options for funding kind of the township portion of cost. And then once we have all the funds secured, we would initiate a detailed design plan for construction, likely in the 2026 timeframe. And while we're on the subject of active transportation projects, I did just want to take the opportunity to update on a few other ideas we're considering through the active transportation and mobility plan. So these are projects that are being conceptualized right now through that plan and could be part of the preferred or the recommended solution or alternative with that plan. So this is a bit of a sneak preview. Skipped one, go back. Okay, yeah, so Trestle Bridge Trail, we're understanding through the plan is a really important trail to forming kind of an east-west connection between Fergus and Elora. So an idea we had is to pave a portion of the Trestle Bridge Trail so that it could be perhaps, maintained a little bit in the wintertime to allow people to use active transportation all year on that segment of the trail. So this would be, could include trail lighting also, so that it's, more, welcoming in the nighttime for use, safer to be used at night. And a new controlled crossing at Bridge Street. We would include signage, benches, bike storage. Another project we're looking at, so Church Street, kind of the Church Street corridor in Elora, which turns into part of the Elora Cataract Trail. Behind the Elora Public School. There's an opportunity there perhaps to pave that trail from Geary to where the trail ends past the school. We could look at in Elora, we're hearing through the plan just some folks talking about crossing Metcalfe Street in Elora and how that's become quite a busy spot, particularly on the weekends, and hard to cross there. So we could look at some type of controlled crossing of Metcalfe Street at Church also. And again, with this one, signage, benches, bike storage, that's kind of consistent throughout all of these ideas. The Bellside Cemetery, this one has been talked about before, but there's between Highland Road and the cemetery, there's this kind of an unofficial trail that we could look at making more of an official trail. And there have been some conceptual drawings that have been prepared for that. It's hard to see here, but there's this kind of switchback trail that's been proposed that would reduce the grade and make it more accessible, more usable for all people. Another project that we're looking at also. And there's more. So trail connection from the CW Business Park, the new phase of the CW Business Park, to Glengarry Crescent near the Fergus Dog Park. New pedestrian bridge over the Grand River near the location of the Craighead Cottage. Trestle Bridge Trail, active transportation improvements. So I spoke about the part of the Trestle Bridge Trail. That's the township-owned piece of it. There's the county-owned piece of it also that runs through the county campus lands. And there's another opportunity, perhaps, paving, lighting, that segment of it. The Middlebridge Place Bridge replacement with the pedestrian or cycling bridge. That's something we've talked to council about before. St. David Street, multi-use path. So from where we're ending with the bike lanes at the end of phase 2 this year at Edinburgh, continuing with the multi-use path north to connect the commercial area and some of those new development areas in the north. McQueen Boulevard multi-use path, so McQueen Boulevard extension through the South Fergus secondary plan area, having a multi-use path along McQueen and some improvements at the Tower McQueen intersection. And then some active transportation improvements in Bellwood also. We've been hearing from folks in Bellwood that that's something that they're certainly interested in. And on a map, here's where all those projects are located. And so just to summarize everything, so our recommended option is the Elora Cataract Trail improvement on a new alignment through Fergus, and we're seeking council approval to submit the application, delegate authority for us to execute the grant, and then report back if we're successful with the financing plan to council through the 26 budget discussions. Thank you very much. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Adam. Comments, questions? Councillor Milton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters, and thank you, Adam, for the presentation. I was remiss earlier in the council committee updates that Adam did bring the grant application options to the Healthy Communities committee. And the committee actually had a really good discussion about, you had 4 different options, I believe, during the committee discussion. And the one that the committee definitely agreed on was the #1 priority was this fixing that kind of broken connection through Fergus on the Elora Cataract Trail. So I just wanted the rest of council to be aware that this was well discussed at the committee, and the committee wished Adam well in the tight deadline. So yeah, thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Councillor Welton. Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters. Well, I support all grants that you guys bring forward because I think that's the only way we're going to get money from the government, it seems. Where is the remainder of the funds going to come from?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor McDonald. So through the mayor, so we have created for this year we do have approved funds in a budget called the active transportation improvements, I believe. And then I think with that budget, the way we're thinking about it was we would do the active transportation mobility plan, and it's kind of seed money to implement any of the kind of low hanging fruit type recommendations from the plan. But it could be that a recommendation of the active transportation plan is to have some capital budget set aside in various years for some of these projects recommended through the plan. So I think that, it could be a combination of that approved budget and some future budget requests through the 26 budget process. But I think there are a few different options, and we would have to kind of weigh them.
Thank you, Mayor Waters, for the follow-up. I really love, and I'm glad to hear that it was discussed. I saw that, I think, at the bottom of the recommendation. I love that we're not going on main roads. I mean, I bike these trails all the time in the summer, and you won't catch me on 6 biking, for sure. So I'm happy to see that this will give folks another way of getting outside, year round, winter, fall. It'll be great. Thank you.
Any further comments or questions for Adam? Thank you very much for your presentation. I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington directs staff to submit an application under the Government of Canada Active Transportation Fund Grant Program for the Elora Cataract Trail improvements on the new alignment through Fergus, Ontario, and that the Council delegates authority to the Chief Administration Officer and Managing Director of Corporate Service Treasurer to execute any funding agreements and any other documents related to securing the funding should the township grant application be successful, and that the council directs staff to report back on the project financing for the township share of the project cost should the grant application be successful. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Evoy, a seconder on that. Councillor Adams, any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Thank you. Okay, so let's take a 7-minute break, and we'll be back in 7 minutes. Okay, welcome back. We're going to go to item number 12.6, Fergus Grand Theatre Operations and Community Impact Report from Kristen. And thank you for taking care of that door. Welcome.
Thank you. It was attached. So, but you know what? I didn't send it again separately. It was just attached in iCompass. Okay. Sure. I can do it without it too. There's just some pretty pictures that you'll be missing, a couple of graphs. Okay, so there was a resolution passed by council in December 2023 that directed staff to investigate the profitability of the Fergus Grand Theatre. The Fergus Grand Theatre Operations and Community Impact Report summarizes the work that came out of that. The report aims to show how the theatre operations align with council's strategic plan and the opportunities to better serve the community. And the report has three major sections. It starts with some background information about the theatre, then it breaks out the situational analysis, looking at the current state, the financial situation, and a look at the operations of the theatre. The section also refers to the Spark report done in 2023 as attached. The recommendation section shows three main recommendations based on the information above and speaks to the attached work plan. Don't worry about it, Lisa. You have it? Okay. So that's okay. The theater is booked more now than ever, and that's expected to continue. The demand for weekend rentals now exceeds what we have available. The rental market is strong. Oh, sorry. The rental market is strong. It requires a lot less from staff. However, the types of shows usually have a built-in audience that clients know will somewhat be successful on its own. The presenting series are shows that the theater coordinator has curated and are either focused on supporting up-and-coming artists, shows that are culturally rich, or that are DEI focused. We will talk about this more in the recommendation section. However, because the presenting series is curated by the township, this can be focused more on the areas that match the value of DEI. This is more context before we get to the recommendations. This is the financial side. So municipalities typically provide services to fulfill a community need that is not otherwise supported by and profitable for the private sector. Staff anticipate that the Fergus Grand Theatre will continue to require some form of property tax subsidization for the foreseeable future. The amount of property tax used to subsidize the Fergus Grand Theatre was at its lowest when the facility was closed during the pandemic. The subsidization stayed relatively consistent for 2022 to 2024 and is projected to increase approximately $148,000 in 2025 to support additional part-time staff to alleviate operational challenges. This was approved by council in the 2025 staffing strategy. It is not common for a theatre of this size to find economies of scale. A simple way to avoid property tax subsidization would be to double fees and charges, which would be a huge barrier for many of the users of the theatre. The Spark report was done in 2023 as a part of the Cultural Action Plan. There were a number of key areas that came out of that report that were recommended to consider, and you will see those echoed in the Operations and Community Impact Report. The Operations and Community Impact Report detail three recommendations, each with action areas. The first was to create program offerings that focus on the community. The second was to improve the fiscal sustainability of the Fergus Grand Theatre. And the third was to address staffing and resource gaps for growth and service management. More detail about timing and key performance indicators are in the work plan attached to the report, but we'll be looking at these recommendations at a high level now. With the recommendation to create program offerings that focus on the community, staff will be looking at leveraging the presenting series to utilize off-peak times and highlight the diverse and culturally significant events. Staff will also look to expand youth-focused offerings. There will be more of a focus to collaborate with the business community. The work plan also talks about supporting community groups through a co-presenting model. And after we refocus the presenting series, we'll assess the viability of it. The second recommendation is around improving the fiscal sustainability of the Fergus Grand Theatre. Initiatives in this area include reviewing and updating rental rates and fee structures, maximizing rental revenue, introducing new revenue streams, maximizing marketing efforts, and then continuing with the asset management plan. The final recommendation is to address the staffing resource gaps for growth and service management. Under this recommendation, staff will be looking to enhance staffing levels to meet growing service demands, develop a sustainable staffing model and integrate volunteer support, and lastly, evaluate and clarify the role of the volunteer board and enhance volunteer engagement. We were asked to look at the profitability of the Fergus Grand Theatre, but what has become obvious is that there are many indicators of success beyond the level of profitability, many of which the theatre is already achieving. These are just a few of those examples. Council approval is required to direct staff to commence work on the work plan. However, this report is for information purposes only. Staff will return to Council in March to seek that direction, but at this time, a limited set of action items is required to facilitate initial progress and ensure the successful achievement of the 2025 goals. The first was around implementing the staff recommendations as per the theatre staff report, using funding that was already approved in the 2025 staffing strategy and approved in the 2025 budget. The next one is for staff to start working with the DEI Advisory Committee and community groups of interest to ensure programming takes place during culturally significant times. The Theatre for Young Audiences function for local schools takes a long time to work with the school board and make sure that we are abiding by their protocols. And lastly, the rates and fees were passed in 2025 budget, so staff are looking to implement those new rates and fees as approved. The next steps are to have this report go on Connect CW for public feedback for a 6-week period. During that time, reports will also go to the Healthy Communities, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Economic Prosperity and Growth Advisory Committees of Council. Staff will then bring it back to Council in April to request final adoption. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Evoy.
Such a great job. I've definitely noticed the increase of engagement around the theatre by an increase in more diverse and growing audience. So congratulations there. When I was there, again, huge kudos to you and the team for putting on The Awakening most recently on Sunday. And Eric, thank you to Eric Goody for his great skills. He and his wife both spoke about the purposeful shows. And then at the water cooler outside later on, I heard a lot of people curious about what that means and what that's going to look like. So very exciting to see, again, an increased engagement. I look forward to hearing that we're working with school boards and other such people with regards to youth and EDI or DEI. So I look forward to further conversations on those. But kudos to the team on this. You guys are really moving it forward.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions from council? Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm going to read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Central Wellington receive Fergus Grand Theatre Operations and Community Impact Report for information, and that Council directs staff to post the Fergus Grand Theatre Operations and Community Impact Report on Connect CW for public feedback and bring the report to the Economic Prosperity and Growth, Healthy Communities, and Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Committees for feedback before returning to Council for final final approval and that council approves the pre-approval section outlined in report CS 2025-04 to enable staff to meet 2025 targets. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Evoy, seconder on that. Councillor McDonald, any further comments or questions? Yes.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge that the event was in honor of Black History Month, and thank you. And I look forward to other such performances as we celebrate other cultural days and events.
Thank you for that. All those in favor? So move. Thanks again, Kristen. We'll move down to item Community Improvements Program 2025, and we have a report from from Brett Semin.
I'm not Caitlin. This is a fairly straightforward report, and I just want to say, so annually we report to council on the programs that we're going to offer in our CIP each year. Last year, which was the first year of our new CIP, we offered all of the programs except for the facade and building improvement programs, because there had been a number of those over the year, and we thought we would see what the take-up of other programs was. Unfortunately, there was not a lot of take-up of any of the other programs last year, and we continue to see significant demand for facade improvements in downtown Fergus and downtown Elora in our business parks. So for this year, we're recommending that we add back in the facade improvement program. So in effect, what we're asking for is for council to approve that all of the programs are open in all of the areas in 2025.
Okay, thank you, Brett. Comments, questions, Councillor McDonald.
Just a point of clarification, it won't change any of the other programs. We're just making it all the facades, bringing that back in, right?
Yes, no changes to any other program.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Thank you, Brett, for this. Do you think that the uptick in or non-uptake in the different grant programs is like something that we could improve with marketing, or like why do we not see that people are wanting to do grant programs with the township?
Well, I think overall, of course, building is down because of interest rates and cost of things. But for sure, we're seeing a lot of renovation. And so that's why there are interest in the facade improvements in the downtown core. The lighting program in Fergus has people excited to continue that. And we'll bring something specific probably to that through Economic Prosperity Committee in the coming months. But I think there is a marketing aspect to it. Like one of the things we added were assistance for on-farm diversified use buildings and things like that. And this year, George and Caitlin are planning to do some outreach with some workshop programs on, how to create an on-farm diversified use that might lead to more take up to this kind of program. So definitely marketing is part of the plan to try to push those. And I think when we look at in the next few months, we're going to be completing our housing needs assessment. We're going to be looking at from our own perspective whether we apply for housing accelerator funding at the federal level once we have the housing needs assessment, and that might drive pushing some of the incentives that we already have in our own CIP for housing that we could push and market more. Maybe if Housing Accelerator Fund gives us some more dollars for marketing that we can use, we can take advantage of our incentives that already exist but aren't being taken up very much.
Any other further questions or comments for Brett? Okay, thank you for that, Brett. I'll read the recommendation. The council authorized the use of the facade and property improvement grant, grant study grant, building improvement grant, rental housing housing development charge, deferral tax increment equivalent, and brownfields tax assistance and incentive programs for 2025 as part of the community improvement plan as recommended by the Economic Prosperity and Growth Advisory Committee. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor McDonald, seconder on that. Councillor Jefferson, any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Okay, item 12.8's been deferred, so we'll go down to now item 12.9, tobogganing in Centre Wellington, and we have Lucas. Welcome, Lucas.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here to speak to you on tobogganing in Centre Wellington. Much anticipated topic, I'm sure. So to give you some background, earlier this year, this winter season rather, there was some concerns raised forth about some health and safety concerns at some hills and tobogganing in Centre Wellington. So because of that, no tobogganing signs were installed at the hills to allow us some time to approach our insurer and just get some direction on and some recommendations on our risk mitigation procedures and where we lie at that. This also opened up a door into what our other winter activities responsibilities under the Occupiers Liability Act are throughout the township, specifically with outdoor rinks. So with this, we engaged our insurance provider, and we did an assessment on 3 hills at Farrier Park, one at Farrier Park rather in Fergus, one at Foot Park in Elora. My mistake, that's a typo there. And one in South Ridge and Stafford Street in Elora. So those were 3 hills were chosen as representative hills of the township in parks because we have been brought to our attention that there has been tobogganing activity at those hills. Similarly, we chose 3 ice rinks in the township, although we actively have about 12 community ice rinks working right now. We chose South Ridge Park, Bissell Park in Elora, as well as Highland Park or at the Tie Diamond. These were representative rinks to show the differences in sizes. They are a little different in usage and size, so we felt these representative rinks gave a good overview of the activity in Centre Wellington. So that's the background. From there, we did receive a report with some recommendations from our insurance provider. And what this report effectively states is they suggested a 3-phase implementation program to implement a winter activities program for tobogganing and a winter activities program for outdoor ice rinks. The gaps that were identified typically in phase 1 were identified as we need to do inspections, regular inspections on the sites. We need to approve areas, and we need to be able to communicate information through the township website as well as signage in the parks. And these are the recommendations actually for phase 1. So this would be for the remainder of this 2025 season, approximately from February 25th to the end of winter. Then the second recommendation under phase 1 would be to prohibit tobogganing at Farrier Park because we would leave the existing tobogganing prohibited signs there. We would install barriers to deter the activity and communicate to the public that it is not an approved hill for the remainder of this season and direct residents to approved locations. We would also then inspect regularly for the remainder of this season. I should actually go back a little step and say, what were they looking at for on these hills to bring these recommendations forward? Well, they were looking at what are going to be risks to the public for injuries. Are there barriers there? Are there unsafe actions? Are there poor routes, or what are the risks that would cause harm potential to residents or active participants in that? So these again were the recommendations. What the overall recommendations actually were to leave South Ridge and Foot Park approved hills opened, and then Farrier Park would be closed for the remainder of this season. Then we would look to phase 2, which would be put in place an operational plan throughout Q2 of this year. And we would prepare a winter activities risk management program for tobogganing as well as for outdoor rinks. We would look at the physical attributes of the hill, what are what is the hill capacity, I guess, for allowing and the safety concerns of that hill. And we would then sign accordingly to allow use. We would ensure the hill that is safe and suitable for tobogganing, inclusive of implementing hill changes if required. So in the case of Farrier Park, there was identified that there were significant barriers and significant obstacles, which, although they may pose some fun, they do pose a high-risk area. And that was identified in the recommendation that we need to put some barriers around there and identify these risks. And we would then put in maintenance and control measures to conduct regular inspections and report and react to incidents or issues. We would then bring back a report to council later in the season in Q2, Q3, on what our activities management program would look like. The third phase then would be in October 2025, then to present and implement the entire program, which would to allow approved winter activities in tobogganing at all 3 locations, at Farrier, at Southridge, and at Foot Park, rather. And we would, at that point, have our program in place with our full signage. We'd have our inspection protocol in place and our standard operating procedures put together, which would have been ratified by council at that time. And then we would look to community education, making sure that we have our proper communication out through the public pre-season to make sure that it is notified where you may toboggan and where the community ice rinks are being. We're going to go a little bit later into the community ice rinks because there was a few additional recommendations with them working with community groups in particular. So this is the recommendations brought forth. So getting into specifics, at Southridge Park, as part of the report, this is taken from the report, it was identified where the approved locations would be. So you can see in the green arrows right there, it's a fairly large berm and hill, fairly ideal. Not too many restrictions in terms of barriers or safety concerns for sledding down the hill. It's a nice long land out or roll out into the soccer fields there. Fairly safe. This is why they recommended that this would be a suitable area. Some of the concerns they did have was to make sure that we have signage right where the red arrow is, rather by the playground and off to the other side, and then create a barrier or some sort of signage to say, do not go off the other side of the berm onto the road. So what we're proposing for this year, for the remainder of this year at Southridge, we'll allow tobogganing here. We'll place signage. This is a site here you can see from the northeast side. We would put signage, you can see where the walk pathway is, I guess, the footprints up there. We'd place signage there identifying that this is the approved area for tobogganing and just delineate where that is. And this is the proposed signage that we will place there. It identifies our location. It identifies the risk element to it. It gives us some recommendations to prevent any risk or hazards to the user, as well as it gives emergency contact and your location on the signage as well. All things recommended by the report. Then what we'd also do is then for the remainder of the season, conduct a regular inspection on there and start an inspection program. In 2026, again, this would be an approved hill as per our winter activities program, and we would increase our community education and communication. Foot Park, green arrows, not too many concerns with Foot Park. If you can see, the only concerns that were identified was there was some treed areas there, and there is some redesign since this photo has been taken. There's some redesign of where the play structure is, and so we would delineate where the approved line is for the tobogganing hill there. The main concern actually with Foot Park from the insurance risk perspective was that the parking along the drive or the roadway there, kids, if they get too excited, it can limit some sight lines coming around that corner where kids can either go out onto the road or in between cars. And so what they suggested is we create some sort of barrier or signage there just to inhibit children from going onto the roadway, which makes sense. Other than that, no terrible concerns with Foot. And you can see this is actually this year's photo, and there is some issue they had with the position of where the new playground is and the retaining wall that corresponds to it. So we would just sign that off as a barrier to make sure that people don't go into the rocks. And similar signage as well, outlining the location and all the other pertinent information. And most importantly, the risks that you would be assuming and the emergency numbers. and Farrier Park in Fergus. So this was identified as an area that had significant obstacles, however fun it may be for the occupants. There's significant obstacles there. There's many trees. There is some benches that are down below, and a lot of hazardous areas throughout there, as well as it doesn't have a long runoff for the tobogganers or the sledders to slow down and come to a stop without finding a barrier. As well, they tend to zip down into a roadway, and we'll see here there are several blocks, concrete blocks. This is a right of way for a road, and the barriers there do pose a significant risk to the users. And for these reasons, this is why it was recommended by the insurance providers doing the assessment that we need to look at ways to mitigate this risk. We need to look at ways of changing Farrier Park to make it more risk-friendly, I guess, to tobogganing. And some of those components that they suggested are some barriers around trees. In particular, do I have it here? Sorry, let me back up. Right by where one of those yellow arrows are, there's a tree right in the center, and people kind of go around it at this point. So that would have to be identified and barriered around, whether we use bales or something to that effect, to ensure that people are aware of that barrier. So for the several other reasons that are identified throughout the report as well, this was for the remainder of this year, 2025, in order for us to allow time to come together with a plan, put resources together to identify what are the problems or what are the areas, how we will route tobogganing at Farrier Park. We are recommending that we continue to prohibit tobogganing at Farrier Park until we're able to put forth a plan later in this year, and then implement that plan in 2026 as an approved hill, as you can see here in our recommendations. And then that would go along with our continued community education, regular inspections, et cetera, et cetera. These are just additional signage that'll go up at Foot Park and Southridge. To community outdoor rinks now, a gap that was identified in our rinks are currently inspections as well as signage as lacking. That poses some risk for us as well, and the winter activities of outdoor rinks. So this year we're going to look at putting up some signage then to identify those hazards, and we'll work to design new signage for next year to allow proper signage similar to what was in the tobogganing as well. And we'll also institute additional inspections, regular inspections rather. And this is the same phase 3. We would, for the remainder of this season, we'd continue as we are. We'd add some signage, we'd work with the community groups, and we'd initiate some inspections. Phase 2, we would then loop this into the standard operating procedures and program for the winter operation program, or the winter activities risk management program, under an outdoor rinks section. And we would initiate a full-blown program at 2026, which would include full signage and communication, et cetera. Now, this does not come out with a cost. We currently have a staffing complement of 1 in the winter. Our parks coordinator works at park garbage collection, snow removal on select township facilities. He does the community outdoor rink support currently now, as well as our parks coordinator does all our playground and health and safety inspections within our parks division. He does event support, which we've had several large events happen throughout the township this winter season, as well as seasonal planning and project management. His plate is rather full. So to bring this extra workload onto our parks coordinator rather, we're not able to manage that program effectively with a single staff member that we have in this division. So we are recommending that we just council a new winter seasonal labor position to help us with implementing this new winter program for both these risk management programs of tobogganing and winter or outdoor ice rinks. So the cost of that will be for the remainder of 2025, starting in October to December, approximate $12,000 for the position. This is also an unbudgeted amount at this point. And then the 2026 cost would be $29,000 for the position from January to April, and then from October to December in 2026. And that would be included in our 2026 budget, as well as staffing strategy. And the roles of this position would not only be with taking care of the inspections of the winter programs, they would also assist with garbages. They would also assist with the event setup as well, and snow removal. And that concludes the presentation here this evening, and I'm happy to field any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucas. Questions, comments? Councillor Wilton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters, and thank you, Lucas. Just curious if you could go back to what the current Parks Coordinator has under their responsibilities, because I'm kind of curious how much. Oh, anyway, that's okay. How much time is being spent on? You said there were quite a few events this winter that were just being covered by the current staffing, but then when we want to do something for all the residents, it's going to cost more money. So, are there other avenues of budget, I guess, that could cover some of those other things? Yeah, the event support and.
So the event support, through you, Mayor. Sorry, were there just other areas?
No, that was the main one. Like, how much time is being taken up by event support? Like, maybe that's a different type of staff person we need just for event support.
So the event support
events could cover the cost of that.
So the event support is actually a smaller portion this year. Where it really comes into play is garbages, where we've seen this year in the parks, and then throughout the town we've employed, brought in some other staff through recreational facilities to help us assist with the garbages in downtown Elora as well. The snow, he's been having troubles keeping up with our obligations under the snow as well. And he also has his time off. He's a longtime employee here that is entitled to that as well. And he's also, there's some, on a health and safety point of view, he's also working alone in many times with the snowblower and shoveling in the dark and that. So he's got a lot on his plate to cover that. And I do rely on him as well to help with seasonal planning and with our staffing for the summer as well. So.
Just to follow up that, I'm just curious why we only have one person. So why has this been so, we're a pretty big township with a lot going on, to have one person responsible for all of that. And as you say, being out alone with heavy equipment, and that seems like it's not the best situation. So I'm just kind of curious if we're looking at the full amount of staffing required for all of these things that are happening throughout the year in our community as it gets busier and we grow, that does seem like.
I see Pat there, got her hand up.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I just wanted to add that, of course, with every department, as we grow, there's always a push point where we do need additional staff. And I think that's what we're bringing forward here, is that this particular staff is full, is plate. This has also been an exceptional winter for snow and cold. And other years, we're not as busy with the ice rinks and the snow. So this has just been an exceptional year. And without knowing what each winter will bring, we're recommending the additional staff person be added to take on the additional work, which is inclusive of the winter risk management program. I guess the answer is, in the past, the one staff had been adequate.
Councillor Evoy and then Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you, sir. And to pull off of what my colleague said, I'm under the impression, correct me if I'm wrong, that events at festivals specifically always have their own garbage control and pickup. Why was that not the way this winter?
Through you, Mayor. So the festivals in particular, I think it's the overflow that's happened from the downtowns. I can't speak to how they operated in the past. We in parks, we do provide event support throughout the summer and out through the winter as well. Again, events haven't been the large portion this year. What it has been the aftermath in the parks for the cleanup, for the garbages, etc., from those events. So For the garbages, yeah, they typically do, I guess, if they're at the Sportsplex grounds. But again, sorry, that probably doesn't clarify fully. I don't know.
I see Pat there.
Pat maybe can feed into that one a little bit more. She deals with events a bit more.
Go ahead there, Pat.
Thank you. Yes, specifically this year, we have had some increased garbage pickup in both downtowns, specifically in Elora, and that is the public garbage dispensers. However, the events that are taking place, you're correct, they do have their own garbage pickup, but it always spills on to the public garbage as well. Also, with the change in some of the use of the county waste disposal, we did see a reaction in January and February to additional garbage, household garbage being added to our parks garbage cans. So there was an additional pickup required there this year as well. So we're on top of our parks garbage. Additionally, if you think where all the ice rinks are taking place, I think Lucas mentioned that there are at least 11 or 12. That also adds to our parks garbage where there's no rink, there's very little activity going on in that park, and there's nobody adding to the garbage. So it's just been a number of things. And so when we say events, it encompasses a number of things, including the added use of our parks this season.
Councillor Evi and then
Thank you.
Councillor Adams.
As a follow-up with the mayor's permission, so I look forward now that we have so many increased events and festivals and our garbage increase around more rinks and everything else that Ms. Newson just shared. I look forward to a more fulsome plan as we go forward, other than just adding a team member. I look forward to a more fulsome plan that may include more onus on the event host or the festival host to help with some of these, so that we can continue to be a place that is so proud to have so many events and festivals, that we share some of the ownership of that garbage upkeep. That is one of the things that's going to happen. So I look forward to a more fulsome plan as we go forward.
Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you. So with this coordinator would be the same person that would be responsible in their portfolio for like regular park maintenance of parks like Confederation Park and the Arboretum. Not that one. Yeah, Arboretum.
Sorry, through you, Mayor. So yes, our parks coordinator's purview entails all our sports fields maintenance, overseeing the work of the students, our summer students and our summer staff as well for grass maintenance. But throughout the winter, it's all park inspections. Playground inspections happen monthly. We have over 35 of those that need to happen. There's the health and safety. He basically, yes, is the on ground or front line staff for all our parks and green spaces, open spaces. That's slightly different to the forestry coordinator who takes kind of care of the arboretum, but all the grass maintenance, yeah, is funneled through our team in general. Yeah.
Yes, Councillor Evoy.
Thank you, through you, sir. So going back to the toboggans, which is why you're here. Thank you so much for that report. We got sidetracked, but it was an important issue. When we look at the toboggans, so in a nutshell, what we are saying is that we are able to have a certain amount of tobogganing throughout the township for the remainder of this season, with some work being done to make sure that it's all safe for next year.
Correct.
Okay, any further? Yes, Councillor Wilton.
Sorry, just back to the staffing for a bit. Just curious if there's an opportunity, I guess, to have a shared position with the summer staff as well. So the person has like a full-time year-round job and they switch back and forth between helping out in the summer and the winter. I think we've done that before with other positions and have been trying that out in terms of better staff retention, better kind of get that commitment to the team by being all year round instead of just coming on in the fall and then losing your job in the spring. So just curious how we look at that, because it seems like as we get more parkland in general, it feels to me like maybe the park staff are stretched in our township, but I could be wrong on that. I'm happy to be wrong on that, but I do want the parks to be maintained and to a proper level, so year round. So I just want, if that could be considered through the process.
I think Pat or Dan are going to field that one.
Yeah, thank you. Through Mayor Waters, that's something that we've been briefly talking about at a staff level, and we will propose something probably in line with the 2026 budget and staffing strategy. But we're always looking at efficient ways of combining our requirements within departments and across departments. So we'll look into that.
Okay, any other, Pat, did you have anything further to add? I noticed your hand there. Okay, any further comments or questions from council? So,
apologies, sir. Just to land one thing. I know that this council really is looking forward to seeing as many safe spaces for our community's youth to toboggan. And I want to thank you for all the hard work that you've done to make sure that that happens.
Thank you.
Okay, yes, Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you. Could you go back to the one, the Ferrier Park? There's like the yellow arrows and then the red arrows. So I'm assuming one of the arrows is more riskier than the others.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So the one I think with the red is the one where we see the roadway allowance and the narrow trees and the boulders at the end.
You are correct.
Yeah, versus the other hill that's a little bit more leveled.
Yeah. Through you, Mayor, Councillor. So the red arrows are, if we correlate it to this next picture, is the picture on the left-hand side, the hazard collision of trees. That is the road allowance that goes from Guelph Street down to Union Street there. Quite an active spot, as you can see. What that does lead to from the top down through the trees to the tunnel is to the barriers and the barricades at the end of Union Street there. So the recommendation is from insurance provider is that we close that off due to the risks that are involved there, and then we work towards having an approved tobogganing hill at the yellow sections and work towards making that safe. Now, that being said, we can go through and, council can decide how they want to go through on that, how they want to see the risk. But that is the recommendation from our provider, that we provide a route from the top of the hill, the open space hill, and provide sufficient runoff and safe tobogganing that route.
Okay, any other comments? Yes, Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Just for clarification, probably from Adam McNabb, with the position for, I guess, the fall, the $12,000, would that be out of the general capital or?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor Jefferson, and through you, Mayor Waters. No, that would just be absorbed through the operating budget, and it would come out in the wash effectively at end of year, either through a surplus or a deficit end of year, at which point we would take it from reserves to facilitate any gap if in a deficit position. Otherwise, it would just be kind of minimizing the surplus that we would see throughout the course of the year. So there would be no additional budgetary implications for 2025. We would just let it run its course and see where it shakes out at the end of the day.
Okay, any other? Yes, Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you. I think, and talking with my colleagues, I don't think, and I'm just going to speak for my own opinions. I have a strong opinion against any opposition to the proposed prohibition of tobogganing in our parks. I think our staff is doing a lot of work to get us to the point where we can work with other means, removing hazards and education. And I love hearing all of those pieces. An outright ban is hard, right? We're prioritizing both public safety and equitable access to our outdoor spaces. And, these outdoor neighborhoods have a long-standing tradition. I do have a proposed amendment when we get to that point, but I wonder too if it would be helpful if if I could request that we have the resolution separated out, might be helpful as well. But I think the first three pieces are kind of similar, and then the staffing, and then the final resolution.
Yes, any further comments or questions?
Through you, Mayor. For any families that can't afford any other sports except for going out tobogganing, I think this is a little bit hard, or it's creating a bit of hardship. And so I fully support changing the resolution. Pulling it out separately is probably the best way to go.
Councillor Evoy?
Thank you, through you, sir. I want to speak to and to thank my colleague, Councillor Adams, for bringing that back to the table. I think one of the things that it would appear we all agree upon, as we've all said, is that we want to make sure there's an equitable access. We don't have a whole lot of parks where kids can play on a hill, and to close down some and leave some accessible is a problem for us. And I'm grateful that, again, to reiterate the work you're doing, but I'm also really pleased to see that we can come together and come to an agreement that will help us to try and ensure that our kids can access the hills.
Any further comments or questions on this? We're just gonna chat with the clerk here as we figure out this. Okay. Okay, I'm going to read the first part of this. Recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington direct staff to implement and formalize a winter activities risk management program, including toboggan and community ice rinks, and that Council delegates authority to the Managing Director of the Community Services to approve the location in the township where a toboggan and community ice rink program will be implemented, and that Council directs staff to return to Council with a final report on winter activities risk management programs for Council approval by June 2025. So that's the first one. Okay. So we're all sort of, I got head nods on that one. So I'm going to ask for a mover on that. Councillor Wilton, seconder on that. Councillor Evoy, any further comments or questions as it relates to that portion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay, so that portion is moved. So on the second part,
just this part right here.
I'm just going to read this out. So see what everyone's heads at it. And that Council,
Maybe just take the and out of there.
Okay. That Council approves the additional staffing requirements for the winter activity risk management programs as outlined in report CS 2025-10. Are you excited about it? What? Yes, Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you. Just a question on that one. In seeing like the first part that we've supported and knowing that there's a report coming in June, I'm just kind of wondering whether the approval of the staffing requirement, what would be the consequence of deferring the approval of the staff component until the June report?
Dan or Pat? Yeah.
I can answer it, Dan.
Yep.
I can't see if Dan's hand's up, sorry. I'm happy to respond.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Pat.
so there is no consequence of doing it. I think we just want to be clear that should we move forward with this winter activities risk management program as proposed, and we work through all of the steps that's going to take, that there is an increased level of service that council is agreeing to, and there is a cost in staffing in order for us to implement that increased level of service. So you couldn't wait until the next, when you see the final report. The challenge will be is that all the work will be laid out, the work plans and everything at that point, and we still require the additional staffing to implement such a program.
So, what am I hearing is you're not open to doing that right now, and we'll just wait for the report to come back? Or is that, I'm getting nods that way. So that second one, we just forego and wait for the staffing, wait for the report to come back and suggest what's required from a staffing point of view. Or we more want to be where we want to sort of initiate the staffing now. Councillor Wilton.
Sorry, I'm going to go against the grain, I think, but I personally think it's pretty clear that one human can't take care of all the responsibilities in the wintertime. So I'm comfortable with going ahead with the staffing requirement as outlined in this report today. And there'll probably be more details, I would imagine, in the next report in June. But I would hate for us to get into a situation where we all change our minds somehow between now and June and we've done a lot of work and then all of a sudden we don't commit to staff at that time. So I'm comfortable with kind of moving forward with this piece at this time. Thank you.
I'll read that again. That council approves additional staffing requirements for the winter activities risk management program as outlined in report CS 2025-10. Okay, we have a mover there. Do we have a seconder on that? Seconder, Councillor Jefferson. Any further comments or questions? Councillor Evoy.
Through you, thank you. If I can ask my colleague a direct question. So I love the idea that we're going ahead. I thought we were going to have a discussion about whether or not we were making this a shared position, or did you want to just go ahead? Like, are you comfortable just going ahead and making it a position on its own? If you could just clarify what you're looking at.
Yeah, I think there was clarity from staff, from Dan, that they would look into that type of position as they go through their staffing strategy. But we know we need a staff person to. So I'm comfortable with Dan's answer to my previous question.
Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters, just to check again with our treasurer, you said this will come out in the wash at budget time. We just went through budget in December, so I just want to make sure that that's the case by next budget.
Yeah, thank you for the comments, Councillor McDonald. And through you, Mayor Waters. As part of the 2026 budget, we would be looking at the potential of a resource to support kind of the 26 timeframe. This is just in the context of 2025, whereby we would just let it run, absorb it through our operating costs, and then see where the dust settles at end of year. Either it be supported through a surplus position or through a deficit position, which would ultimately have to be funded through reserve. So this is just in the context of 2025. For 2026 budgeting purposes, we'd be bringing back a staffing strategy that would look for the long-term ramifications that this position had.
Through you, Mayor Waters, it is concerning to hear that, you know, now that county has changed as of, I think it was January 1st, how we're doing our garbage, and you can't just go to the dump, you know, without paying a high fee, and that we're possibly seeing it in our parks. That's extra demand on us as township and for the staff. So that part's concerning, because where do you find time in that one person's day to do all that extra garbage emptying? And it can't stay in the parks because it promotes other things happening in the parks with raccoons and everything else. And so that's concerning for me. I'm just going to put that out there.
Okay. Okay, so we had a mover, we have a seconder. All those in favor? That's so moved. Okay, and then the last part. Oh, this is where we'll probably need to do a bit of a dance now. Let me read, I'll just read what we have right now.
Yeah,
that's yep.
above the yellow.
Yep. And that the remainder of the 2025 February to April winter session tobogganing be permitted at Foot Park, at Selfridge Park, inclusive of the interim risk management practice identified in report CS 2025-10, and that tobogganing be prohibited on all other township lands until the final report is considered by council. So that's okay. So that's what's on the in our report right now. So okay, Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I would like to propose an amendment. I'm gonna give it a whirl here. I'd like to propose that for the remainder of the 2025 February to April winter season, tobogganing be permitted at Foot Park and South Ridge Park, inclusive of the interim risk management practices identified in report CS 2025-10, and that tobogganing temporarily be prohibited on the high risk area of Farrier Park as indicated by the red arrows until the final report be considered by council.
No, I'm catching up. I'm just.
So just to clarify, that would like strike out prohibited on all other township lands. Be, yeah.
And that the remainder of 2025, February to...
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Try that again.
I thought I was being helpful.
Okay. Yeah. And the remainder of the 2025 February to April winter season, tobogganing be permitted at Foot Park and South Ridge Park, inclusive of the interim risk management practice identified in report CS 2025-10, and that tobogganing temporarily be permitted on the high-risk area of Farrier Park as indicated by the red arrows on the map included in report CS 2025-10 until a final report be considered by council.
I got it.
Yes, it said temporarily prohibited, correct?
And that
Temporarily be
tobogganing, forgot the word B.
Oh, be temporary prohibited.
Okay, I'm going to read it one more time, okay? And that the remainder of the 2025 February, April winter season, tobogganing be permitted at Foot Park and South Ridge Park, inclusive of the interim risk management practices identified in report CS 2025-10, and that tobogganing be temporarily prohibited on the high-risk area of Farrier as indicated by the red arrows on map included in the report CS 2025-10 until a final report is considered by council. Okay. Any further comments or questions? Okay. Is that a comment or a question, or is that a something? Okay, go ahead.
Might be a question for Lucas or Pat. Just curious if we have staff capacity in the next week or two to create the necessary signage and barriers at Farrier Park if we're looking at splitting it that way.
Through you, Mayor. Thanks for the question. We have in anticipation prepared some time to implement these changes.
Pat, you're on.
Yeah, I'm just going to add on, just for clarity, I want to understand that you're now, so your suggestion in this resolution is that there will be tobogganing at Farrier Park, and that the section that is considered high risk would be temporarily closed. And I guess I just wanted to mention that we may never be able to open that high risk area and make that safe without some really extreme measures in the next report. So I just want that council to realize that that may be the outcome of the next report, and that we didn't recommend that there would be tobogganing in the yellow area so that we would have to consider if we have the resources to do that. I'm not sure if we can guarantee that, but we'll certainly give it a try.
Okay. Okay. Any other further comments or questions? Okay, we had a first and seconder, and I'm going to put it to a vote. Okay. Is everyone ready to vote on this? I'm looking at you. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm just not entirely clear what Pat just said. So Pat, thank you. I'm talking to you. I can't see you, so I'm just but so what you're saying is, although we're saying leave the yellow area or the high risk area closed and we'll go everywhere else, you're saying you can't confirm that they can use the yellow area? I'm sorry, I just didn't get it.
They can use it. I'm suggesting that all of the measures that we have prepared for Foot and Southridge, we have not calculated that into our time and resources, but we will certainly do our best to do that if council chooses this path. It's absolutely up to council what you would like to open up for tobogganing. I just wanted to be aware that what I was also trying to say was that by saying temporarily closing the red lines, we may come back in our next report that might not be possible to open that high risk area. Just want the awareness to be there that may be in the next follow-up report. That's coming in June.
Apologies. With the mayor's permission, just to follow up and to clarify, so you're okay and the staff is ready to make the other hills available to our community right now?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for all. So we have a first and a second here. Okay, I can put that to a vote. All those in favor? So moved. Okay. So did I see anyone opposed? I didn't see anyone opposed. Nope. No, their hands were up. Okay, so I'm going to go down now to bylaws. 2025-17, a bylaw to establish an alternative notice policy under Ontario Heritage Act. Next, that's it. That's it. Yeah.
I think I've got it here for you. That one's removed.
Right. Okay. And then a recommendation that a recommendation that bylaw 2025-17 be read first, second, and third time and passed and signed by the mayor and clerk and corporate seal affixed. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Adams, seconder, Councillor Wilton. All those in favor? So moved. Notice of motions? None. Motions where notice has been given. Okay, and a confirmatory bylaw to confirm the actions of council. Recommendations that bylaw.
It's just the numbers changed.
Recommendation that bylaw 2025-18 to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held February 24th, 2025 be introduced the first, second, and third time and passed in open council. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Adams, seconder on that. Councillor McDonald, all those in favor? So moved. And time to adjourn. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, seconder on that. Councillor Jefferson, all those in favor? So moved. Okay. Good night, everyone. Thank you.